Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Tuesday, March 28th, 2017 edition of VR News. Can you believe it's been almost a year since the Rift and the Vive launched? Time she goes quick. Celebrating, Oculus is basically putting a metric crap ton of their games up for sale on the Oculus Store, including a bundle that has a combined 66% savings, basically. If you buy that bundle versus buying the 11 titles on their own, that's how much you save paying $89.99 US. Now, the only issue I have with the bundle is that those of us who've had VR for a while, you've probably played the gems or owned the gems that are in that bundle already. And it's really only going to appeal to those a little late to the party or who maybe weren't able to invest a lot in games, within this last year, and you relied on a lot of discounted or free titles, games, experiences, and that's fine, and you're waiting for sales. Well, this is one such sale to get a lot of games for not much. So gems like Eve Valkyrie, Project Cars, and Chronos all stand out in that bundle. If, like me, you have a good majority of the games in that bundle, there are 30 titles in total. So there's 19 other games outside that bundle, or the games listed in that bundle rather, that have varying sale prices on them. So take a look. You can check that out on the store. Just some of those titles. Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which is it was an earlier example of a good Unreal Engine VR game. It looks fantastic, and it has smooth locomotion. So teleport option as well, but smooth if you're looking for it. And another one, VR Tennis Online, and Pinball Effects 2, which I enjoyed somewhat. It wasn't too bad. But it's not going to come close to having a virtual pinball cab, which I'll actually build at some point. All right. Next news story, Facebook hiring an Apple hardware expert to head the Oculus hardware divisions. Now, the person that they've hired, his name is Michael Hillman. You may know him as indeed an Apple guy and quite a pivotal Apple guy. He's been involved for a good chunk of the time that, certainly while Jobs, when he made his comeback to Apple, Michael was there for a lot of those early designs and products. And if you think about it, that's the one area that not only bites them time and again, it's an area they don't have a lot of expertise in. And I mean Oculus themselves, but also Facebook as the parent company. Facebook has always sold service. Not so much with Michael at Apple. He has built hardware for sale. And even Oculus, a lot of the upper key people were pretty green when it comes to hardware. So having a guy with a really strong hardware background, it makes sense. And quite frankly, they should have probably done this a long time ago. So in my opinion, a really, really strong hire. Now, they've removed the listing for the position, but the one that Hillman fills had verbiage as follows: set the strategy and execute on our consumer product roadmap. So Michael is going to have a huge influence on the future direction of the Oculus hardware. He will be part of the 4K discussion, for example, wireless, etc. So be interesting to see where the company goes with Michael on board. All right. Next news piece. This is a New York Times article giving some insight into Amazon's future plans. So, according to this article, one of the things they're hoping to do is engage with virtual reality technology to be able to open up new areas to sell product and new areas to sell product in. So, among the things that they're working on in this first example isn't really a VR example, just kind of explains where Amazon's mindset is at. One of the things that has really eluded the company for, since the beginning is groceries. selling food online. So one of the alternatives that they're coming up with is having location-based but drive-through style, or some way to accelerate and automate the process of doing groceries. So it would still be a physical storefront, but with automated processes in place to get you your groceries quicker. Well, in that slew of things is engaging with virtual reality technology to sell furniture. Now, I don't know places that you guys live, but I'm sure every one of you has that furniture place. And it's usually that furniture place versus IKEA for the majority of business, especially if you live in one of the bigger cities. Certainly the case here in the Vancouver area, where we have had a company for a long time called The Brick. Now, recent years, they've given up quite a bit of market share, but they have been doing battle with IKEA for people's wallets here for entry-level furniture for as long as I can remember. And that would be a really neat area for Amazon to try to carve out some market share. And using virtual reality makes sense. It's still something that, historically people want to go out and try and test. And it's part of IKEA's success, even though they've also dipped into VR. Part of the charm of IKEA has always been the ability to walk through its stores, see its products displayed, furniture, and be able to sit down or lay down or measure, etc. So translating that type of thing into virtual reality is not going to be without its challenges and acceptance, right? There's probably going to be a lot of change resistance to get people used to buying furniture that way. But interesting insight in terms of where Amazon wants to go beyond what they've been doing and, being fairly status quo at for the last 10 plus years. Next story, guys, has to do with GTA 5. Now, GTA 5 has had a mod for virtual reality pretty much since both Rift and Vive launched. And then there were no updates. They essentially went silent. Well, the modders have basically risen again, and Grand Theft Auto 5 has gotten its first mod updates in 2017. And there's a bunch of things that they've added. So the first update was about adding additional open VR support. That was something that they had done back in December of 2016. Then there was nothing, so it was expanding their open VR capabilities, fixing bugs in that department. And with these latest updates, being able to steer cars by rotating your controllers. You can now walk, for example, with the Vive Edition by holding the trackpad, and run by clicking on it. So they've added a lot of locomotion. Now, this is something that I set up at one time, and I got an okay experience. I wouldn't say it was fantastic. I wouldn't say it was mind-blowing. Very much like my Vorpex experience to date, it's kind of just been okay. And yeah, Vorpex is one of those ones, man, guys, it vexes me constantly. I think I mentioned about a month ago, it was one of those ones I tried again to go back to, and I'm just never impressed with the final results. And I think that would be one of those things, guys, would be fun as hell to live stream and just be able to get some assistance from you guys that do use Vorpex and are familiar with configuring and which titles are better than others. You know what? That might be a thing to do at some point in the future. Next story, this has to do with Pictionary. Pictionary via Jimmy Fallon, who did this the last time I believe was November or December of 2016. And then he kind of went a little radio silent, hasn't done it since until today, where with Scarlett Johansson, Michael Che, and Dove Cameron, he's going to be doing virtual reality Pictionary again. And what I liked about this, guys, now I'm someone who hasn't had a TV subscription for, when's the last time we had TV in this house? Would have probably been around 2011. So 6 years roughly. We haven't had cable or any kind of TV subscription, streaming and downloading absolutely everything. The beauty of that has been not having to watch commercials. And I get the PVR argument that you can fast forward, but when there's no commercials at all, guys, it's that much better. And I just haven't had a reason to go back. The downside of that is there are certain things, some sports stuff, and I've since found workarounds, for example, watching hockey, that I can do streaming now that I couldn't those first few years. But talk shows hasn't been a reality for me for that amount of time. So what I do like about this is there are a lot of people that still watch late night. Nowhere near the kind of numbers that Letterman and Carson had in their day, because there's such a much bigger pie to split between way more people and, more importantly, more consumer options. So we're talking a handful of million viewers, but that is still potential marketing. People are going to watch that. They may see that Pictionary and see something in virtual reality that they may not have entertained before, right? For example, we always talk about the social aspect of VR and how, we get ticked off that it's not viewed as having social potential. The one thing that Fallon clearly gets across with this, despite everything else you may think about doing Pictionary with HMDs, it is very freaking social. This is something you could do with your family, all be crowded around, and works. So, I think it's a positive thing. I would never come across it, but plenty of people will, and I'm sure it's going to be responsible for some sales. So, personally, very cool. Even if it's on a medium, I no longer support. Next news story, and the last, guys, Chroma Lab. This is a teaser from Reddit user Set111 or Set111. And it's basically a particle physics sandbox. There's one thing I've always loved with programs for computers, as long as I love computers, are sound and graphic programs, or what we used to call mods back in the day, where you would get a bunch of hackers and they would make demos. The demo scene was awesome and it was huge, and it allowed programmers to show off their talents. The more crazy those graphics and music got, the more interesting the demos were to watch. And this Chroma Lab has huge nostalgia in that sense, and really has that demo scene vibe written all over it, which is awesome. So in this, you can literally manipulate particle physics, and they are all over the place. You can melt stuff, combine, explode, and the performance looks rock solid. Not a commercial product. Like I said, it's just Reddit user Set111 who's created this. And as he says himself, it is a toy for now, and only currently available via the HTC Vive, but there's a chance, he says, there will be Rift support in the future. And because he's using a custom physics engine, there's no real advantage to being an NVIDIA or an AMD, one over the other. He's not using one of the VR specific enhancements. It's his own custom physics engine. So that gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of GPU, etc. All right, guys, that is it for the news. I hope to have my weekly gaming video either tonight or tomorrow, and definitely some quick look games. It's been a while. I've had to shuffle things, and it's all going to be part of what I talk about in a few weeks. But I will be doing some games. They're probably going to be cockpit games, the next few, where I set up a green screen here as opposed to the room scale. So probably more seated and standing ones here than the room scale that I've been doing. All right, guys, that is it for the news tonight. Wednesday tomorrow, hump day. Have a great night, guys. Cheers.